Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The USC Trojans and Lincoln Riley get it done again in the transfer portal. This is coming a few days after Bear Alexander commits to USC in the transfer portal. They land another massive get on the interior offensive line in Emmanuel Pregnon. Again, this is a very, very exciting year for USC. We talked a lot of USC football. And before we even get talking about what this team's going to look like and what Emmanuel Pregnon is going to bring to USC, just want to say thank you to you guys. Again, the support you guys have shown during the offseason has been absolutely awesome. Whether it's on the recruiting trail, whether it's the transfer portal, whether it's recapping the spring game, the USC fans have been absolutely awesome with the support. It's been a blast talking ball with you guys in the comment section. So again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Almost 5,000 subscribers. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown. Let's get into what Emmanuel Pregnon is going to bring to this USC team. And this comes off the news, early last week that Ethan White medically was not going to be able to play for USC this year. You were really excited about the interior offensive lineman coming over from Florida. Kind of left it. You're seeing Lincoln Riley say, hey, we maybe need to get some more bodies, some more starting caliber guys on that interior offensive line. Emmanuel Pregnon's that guy. He's the number 2 player in the transfer portal opening up this window. And again, an absolute road grader. He's 6'6", 320 pounds. He's built just like a house. And he's a good athlete working at the second level, but he's a guy that's going to move some bodies. And it was so funny seeing the narrative heading into 2022 season where you get Caleb Williams, you have Jordan Addison and Mario Williams and all these wide receivers. And so the national media was like, USC's playing 7-on-7. They don't have a good offensive line that's going to be able to protect Caleb Williams and run the football. That was like so far from the truth. I mean, Andrew Voorhees, Brett Neal, and they had a good offensive line. They averaged 5.1 yards per carry last year, and that was largely due to an exceptional offensive line. And it's looking like they're going to have just as good of an offensive line because they've addressed it in the transfer portal, and they've also have some guys that they've had in the program and developed pretty well. How Lincoln Riley's addressed this transfer portal this year as opposed to last offseason is a little bit different. When Lincoln Riley came into USC last year, the cupboards were bare. They just needed some bodies to play football in 2022. And largely they were good because Caleb Williams and that offense was just exceptional. But now you're seeing Lincoln Riley be a little bit more selective, focusing on the quality of the player that he's bringing in the transfer portal, not just the quantity. Last year, they were just taking kind of anyone who wanted to come, you're coming in. Now this is the 14th guy they've taken. So they're still taking bodies. But the quality of these players are next level. Taking a look at what USC has done in the transfer portal, extremely impressive. But you see Emmanuel Pregnon, the number 2 guy in this portal opening, he's going to be a day 1 starter. Bear Alexander is going to be a day 1 starter. Anthony Lucas, a young kid who apparently is just taking over spring practice, he's going to be a guy that's probably starting right away. Jarrett Kingston, probably a guy that could have gone to the draft. These guys are all immediate contributors to this USC team, whereas you look in the 2022 class, they brought in some good players, but some of those guys weren't necessarily going to be big-time contributors. All these guys, Marshawn Lloyd from South Carolina, if you guys have listened to me, you know how much I like him. The quality of players that they're bringing in this year is different, and you have to be so excited, and especially at the positions they needed to address, right? The defensive line, you go get a guy in Kyon Barnes, you go get a guy like Bear Alexander, Mason Cobb. Teams ran the football for almost over 5 yards per carry against this USC defense. It did lack physicality. If there was a spot on USC's team that lacked physicality, it was that front 7. And they've addressed it in the transfer portal with not just I don't want to say random players, but not just random players, but they've brought in guys who are elite dudes who are going to help this team immediately, like guys like Kyon Barnes, like guys like Bear Alexander. And you look at this depth chart, we've talked about this similarly to, I'll see my Michigan logo at Michigan, where it's like this team there's not many holes in this team. And you add a guy like Emmanuel Pregnon, who maybe had some holes with a guy like Ethan White not being able to play. You feel really good about the starting 5 that you're going to have on the offensive line. You clearly feel good about the wide receivers and quarterback. You have the best quarterback, the best player in college football in Caleb Williams. You have a laundry list, an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position, and quite frankly, the running back position with Austin Jones, Marshawn Lloyd coming in from South Carolina. I thought some of those young cats looked very, very good in the spring game as well. But then on the defensive line, that's where I thought this team last year just kind of lacked some depth, right? And they go get the starting defensive line is all going to be guys who are new faces and all really good football players, right? Kyon Barnes was very, very good for Arizona. Anthony Lucas is a guy that was a former top 100 recruit in the 2022 class who when I'm reading the spring practice notes, like this dude is going to be special. You have Jack Sullivan, another plug-and-play guy that can kind of play a variety of roles on that defensive line. You bring in Tackett Curtis and Mason Cobb, who I think are both, even Tackett Curtis as a true freshman, are going to be contributors in that front seven. There's not many teams that have not only the star power that USC has with Caleb Williams and these wide receivers and some of these playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, but you also feel really good about the depth. And that's something you didn't really feel that good about for USC last year. The star power was there. Caleb Williams put together, Heisman Trophy winner, one of the more impressive college football seasons that we've seen from a quarterback in the last couple of years. The depth wasn't there, especially on the defense. And you look at how USC finished that season, you could tell the depth wasn't there. Like Utah kind of, especially in the second half, kind of ran the ball down their throats because they didn't really have a good crop of defensive linemen that you can rotate in. And that those guys who are 250 plus pounds, they need breaks. You need a rotation on that defensive line. I think you feel a little bit better about USC and having that. And again, this is such an exciting year for USC. We had this conversation when we talked about Bear Alexander transferring. We'll have it again. Like what is this seems to be a college football playoff appearance or bust for USC. I think most USC fans, quite frankly, would say that you rarely get the chance to bring back a Heisman level quarterback and have him start again, surrounded by one of the best play callers in college football in Lincoln Riley and wider receiving groups. Like this offense, in my mind, could break records with the points per game, yards per game. You just need an average defense. And the last year, outside of relying on turnovers, which they did a very good job at, when those turnovers dried up, that defense really struggled. And so if this defense, now I'm not saying they need to be a top 10 defense. I'm not saying they even need to be a top 25 defense. They just need to be able to get off the field and get Caleb Williams more touches. Because the one thing, the one thing that probably like Utah or Oregon, when they're saying, how do we beat USC? It's run the ball, keep the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands, and that's how you're going to beat USC. Because I don't think there's many teams that are going to beat USC in a shootout. Like who's going to score as many touchdowns, run up and down the field. Teams aren't going to want to do that. They're going to want to keep Caleb Williams off the field, run the football, burn some clock, and shorten that game. USC's gotten a lot better at addressing that. And I don't think teams like Utah or Oregon will be able to do that as easily as they were last year, especially when you saw that in the Pac-12 championship game. And so for USC fans, like Pac-12 championship, and I think truly this is a college football playoff team. When you look at the roster, how come the star power combined with the depth, this is a very, very good team. If they stay healthy, I think most USC fans should be expecting a top four team, a team that's competing for a national championship, especially when you look at Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, all teams that are replacing quarterbacks, elite level quarterbacks. This is a wide open year for a lot of college football teams that are trying to break through. USC has to be one of those that are at the top of the list because, again, it's such a good opportunity when you have a guy like Caleb Williams with all the wide receivers he's going to be surrounded with to do something special. Emmanuel Pregnon, an absolutely massive get for Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans. Again, appreciate you guys checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.